The Gemara starts about 5 lines in the 5 lines in the bottom. Yeah, Amar of Chista. The Gemara had just said that the year for kings, for counting a kingship rule, which we use for the dating of documents, begins from Nisan, from the first of Nisan. The Gemara says, though, that only applies to the Jewish kings, but when it comes to Gentile kings, mitishrei minyanim, we start it from Tishrei, right? So that is Nisan in the Torah's count is the first month of the year. That's Chodesh Harishon, and Tishrei would be the 7th month. We'd start it from Tishrei, which is the month that we call, in our vernacular, we call it Rosh Hashanah. So Shenamar. Now, how do we know that? It says, we're going to quote Psukim all over Nach. It says Shenamar Divrei Nehemiah ben Chachalia vahi b'chodesh Kislev shnas esrem. The pasuk says by Nehemiah. Now, what we started introducing this yesterday. Nehemiah is. We started this yesterday already, right? Did I do this yesterday already? No? Okay, we'll come back. So either the pasuk says by Nehemiah that Nehemiah, the Gemara is going to quote on the next page. We actually get a nice reprieve on the next page because the Gemara just quotes all these psukim at length as opposed to giving the exedras, and we get about a half a page of just saying the same psukim again. So it says the story is over there that Nehemiah gets word from someone in Yerushalayim. Nehemiah living in Persia. He gets word from someone in Yerushalayim that Yerushalayim's a mess. That after this is before the second base of Mikdash is really built, and the walls are breached. Everybody's living in poverty. It's the base of Mikdash is basically burned. Nehemiah gets word of this. Now Nehemiah is one of the nobles, or he's one of the, I don't know if he's a servant or a noble to the king at the time, the Gentile king at the time. But the Gemara is going to refer to as Artaxerxes. Now Artaxerxes, it is not really a name. Artaxerxes, yeah, did I pronounce that wrong? Is the word for king. That's what the Gemara is going to say later, which is basically the equivalent of the Egyptian pharaoh. Okay, so it's a number of people are referred to with that term, Artaxerxes, ruler Plony, right? So it happens to be that there are 2 kings, which we're going to see later, by the name of Daryavish, which are going to come up. So we'll see that as well. But so Nehemiah gets word of this. And again, we'll see the entire pasuk later by a person by the name of Hanani, and he gets word of this, and he is depressed. And now he gets all these words. Now the next pasuk says, what we want from this pasuk is it's saying that in Chodesh Kislev, it'll just quickly reference numbers. So I can just jump in numbers and stop and not count so quickly. So it's all right. So he gets word of this. He gets word of this in Chodesh Kislev. And when it comes to Chodesh Nisan, he goes and relates that same, it's the same year. It says it's Shnas Esrim, it's the 20th year. He relates that information to the king. So Kislev is the 9th month. Nisan is month 1. And it's saying that both of these events took place in the 20th year. That means month 1 has passed, right? Like the equivalent of January has passed, and it's still calling it the 20th year. You must see that the verse is not counting January when it comes to, or Nisan in this case, it's not counting month 1 as the new year for the reign of Artaxerxes. So, now the Gemara speaks out just what I just said. Since the first verse is in Kislev, and it's saying that it's the 20th year. And then the second verse is in Nisan, and it's saying it's the 20th year. It proves to you that the verse over there is not referring to Nisan as being the first year, the beginning of the fiscal year of the count of this king. Now the Gemara is going to question the following. The second verse specifically says where it is counting from, the 20th year of Artashachta. But the first verse doesn't tell you it's counting 20 from what. So the Gemara wants to try and say, hey, wait a second. Maybe the first verse is counting from something else, 20 from one thing, and the second verse is counting 20 from something else. Gemara's not gonna stick with that, but it's a pretty strange thing in the middle of the narrative to switch where you're counting from, and use the same number. It's 20. Oh yeah, but that's 20 from the reign of this king, and this is 20 from I don't know when the Beatles broke up. I mean, sorry, I went back too far. These are the last line on the page. How do you know from the second verse that it's counting from there? It's counting 20 from there. Dilma leminyana. Maybe it's counting from a different place. So the Gemara says, Amar Papa Shnas Esrim. We quoted the same thing on the earlier page. Since they both say 20, they are the similarity of them both, which is very intuitive, is the juxtaposition or the concurrent use of both of them tells us they're both counting from the same place. It says Gezerah Shava, which means that they're linked in its syntax, and therefore they are both referring to the same beginning point. So Mahasam Dar Tachashta, Afalcha Dar Chashasta. Fine. So the Gemara has seemingly proven that Nisan is not the Rosh Hashanah, is not the beginning of the year when they count for non-Jewish kings. Now we're 4 lines from the top, and the Gemara is going to try another attempt. It's going to try to refute it from another. It's going to try another angle to refute it. The Gemara says, okay, fine. I see that Nisan, you have to just reverse. It would be the equivalent of, if you have on that piece of paper, actually, it would be the equivalent of looking at the third to last slide on it, where if you look at the numbers, or just play with the numbers on the top and assume, just realize that it doesn't necessarily tell you that Kislev. This is going to be a very, very strange potential proof, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that the event in Kislev, meaning month number 9, happened before month number 1. Maybe Kislev happened after month number 1. So that means that Nisan, month number 1, never passed in between Kislev and Nisan, meaning the second verse happened first. Okay, so the second verse happened at the very beginning of the 20th year, and then 8 months later, 9 months later, whatever it is, that is where you see the first verse. So the verses are out of order, and then there would be no Rosh Hashanah in between, which is very strange because the narrative that you can see in the pasuk, it clearly says not that way, but that's what it's going to try to suggest. Don't think that. You can't think that they're reversing the verses. Titania. Now, all we're going to do right now for almost the rest of the page is quote these verses, and the verses are kind of long, so and it's going to tell you the story. Titania. Here the Brisa says the following: Devarsha Amr Chanani l'Nechemia b'Kislev Amr b'Nechemia l'Melech b'Nisan. The Brisa says the words, the information that Hanani from Yerushalayim gave over to Nehemiah, again, Nehemiah being the servant of the king at the time, in Kislev, Amr Nehemiah l'Melech b'Nisan. Nehemiah went and told that very information to the king in Nisan. So he got the information in month 9, month 10, month 11, month 12, it was depressing him. And month 1 of the new year, so to speak, month 1 of the Torah's count of months, he told over that information to the king. And yet you still see that the year didn't pass. So we know that is not the way that they were counting the reign of the king in the verse for a non-Jewish king. Shenemar, and here we go. Here we say this. Divrei Nehemiah. Here is the verse. Divrei Nehemiah ben Chachalia. These are the words of Nehemiah ben Chachalia. Vayhi b'chodesh Kislev. It was in the month of Kislev, Shnas Esrim of the 20th year. Va'ani ha'isi b'Shushan Abira. I was in Shushan. Vayavo Chanani. Chanani came to me. Echad me'achai. One of my brothers coming from Yerushalayim. Hu va'anashim Yehuda. They came from Yehuda. Va'ash alim ayudaim ha'pleita asher nish'aru min hashevi. And I asked them about, and I asked him and some of the other people that were left over from the captivity about what's with the people there in Yerushalayim, the Al Yerushalayim, and I asked them about Yerushalayim. Vayomerli, hanisharim asher nishar min hashvi. Vayomerli, and he said to me the following: hanisharim asher nishar min hashvi sham b'medinah bara gedola u'b'cherpa. It's the people that are left over in Yerushalayim after the destruction. Those people, they're in terrible shape. Everything's terrible. And they're all downtrodden there. Morning. And the walls of Yerushalayim are breached. And the gates of Yerushalayim are totally burned down in fire. So that's what he was told. So those words. He went and then told those words over to the king in Nisan. Shenemar, and this is what the verse says. It was in the month of Nisan, Shnas Esrim of the 20th year, Artachashta Hamelech, right, to the reign of the king of Artachashta. Yayin Lefonov, he had wine in front of him. Va'esa es hayayin. And Nehemiah is talking in first person. I picked up the wine, and I gave it up to the king. And I had never I'd never been depressed in front of the king before. That was the first time. Nehemiah is saying that was the first time I was ever depressed in front of the king. And he noticed it. And the king noticed I was depressed. Why are you depressed? Now the king is suspecting that he's not really depressed, he's worried, and he's trying to kill the king. So the king's suspecting him of trying to poison him. So it seems to be that, I guess, generally speaking, Nehemiah would take a sip of the wine before he would serve the king. I guess that was something to do to show, I'm not trying to kill you, so that the servants are not trying to kill you. So he says, so Nehemiah was just depressed and he didn't want to drink wine. And he says that Vata eincha chola. You're not sick, something's wrong, and you have bad intentions. So Nehemiah says, "Va'ira harbe mod." I became very, very afraid. Va'omer lamelach, and I said back to the king, "Hamelach l'olam yachya." May the king live forever. Madua lo yer ufanai. What he said? How should I not be sad, and how should I not be depressed? Asher hayir. Base Kivros Avosai, my city, the resting place of my forefathers, Chareva, it's destroyed. Ashareh Ochla ve'esh, and its gates are destroyed with fire. Vayormali Amelach, the king said back to me, he says, what would you like? What would you like from me? So quickly, Nehemiah relates, I daven very quickly to Hashem under my breath, that Hashem should give me hatzlacha on what I'm about to ask. Vayomer lamelech, and I said to the king, Im alamelech tov, if it's good with the king, vim yitav avdecha lefanecha, and if your servant has found favor in the king, asher tishlacheni el Yehuda, please let me go to Yerushalayim, el ir kivros avosai, to the resting place of my forefathers, ve'evnena, and let me rebuild it. Vayomer li amelach. Now the king said back to me, "V'hashegal yosheves atzlo," and his shegal was sitting next to him. Now shegal means some sort of companion. The Gemara is going to talk about the shegal as a dog. He had a dog on the throne next to him. I guess he had a sat with the dog. It's not going to say the greatest things about it. So the king said, with his again, it's weird that it points out that Shega was next one, but either way, he in the middle of the narrative just stops to say, he says, until when are you going to go? And when are you going to come back? So he related to him, and it was all good in front of the king. He says, and he sent me, and I gave him the time parameters, and that's what happened. Now that is what occurred. So you see from here that Nehemiah was just relating what he heard from Hanani, from Yerushalayim, what he heard. He was relating that to the king. So there was no way these verses could have been out of order, and effectively proving that Nisan is not the count of the new year for the king, so sort of the fiscal year of the king. So now, what we're going to need to know is that. We'll see in a second. Now we're going to quote verses from before and after, and it's going to get a little bit confusing where we are. But the Gemara is going to question this now. It says, "Masav Rav Yosef." Rav Yosef asked the following question: "Bayom Esrim ve'arba lachodesh bashishi b'shna shtayim l'daryavesh." The verse says in Chagai, it says, it was on the 24th day of the 6th month, right, of the month of Elul, b'shnas shtayim l'daryavesh, in the 2nd year of the reign of Daryavesh, uksiv, and a different verse says, bashvi, in the 7th month, now the 7th month is Tishrei. So I'll clarify this 1 second. And in the 7th month, in the 2nd year, the 20th day, I'm sorry, in the 21st of the month. That's right. So in the 7th month, in the 2nd year, and the 21st of the month. So you have verses in 2 verses in Chagai that's referring to one coming after the other. One's talking about the 6th month. One's talking about the 6th month, and it's referring to the. Hold on a second. It's talking about the 2nd year, and it's talking about the 6th month, Elul. And the second verse is talking about the 7th month, and it's also referring to the 2nd year, which is Tishrei. So, okay, what's occurred just now? The 2 verses that is quoting in Chagai show you that Tishrei passes, and it's still the 2nd year. Now, the same way the verses in Nehemiah showed you Nisan passes, and it's still the 20th year, these 2 verses show you that Tishrei passes, and it's still the 2nd year. So these verses seem to indicate that Tishrei is also not the Rosh Hashanah. Now, that's a problem, because if Nisan is not the Rosh Hashanah, if Nisan is not our January 1st, so to speak, for the kings, then we assume that we said earlier that Tishrei should be our January 1st for the kings, because you have one or the other. Jewish kings goes from Tishrei, and non-Jewish kings goes from Nisan. So here you see that Tishrei is not being counted as January 1st. It says Vim Isa. And if everything you say is correct, Bashvi B'shnas Gimel Miboilai, it should be that in the 7th month we started the 3rd year. So why is it that the year did not pass? So Amar Rabavo. So it says those verses. Those verses. Hold on a second. That's probably Nissan, right? Right. So, yeah. So it says, Amar Avivo, Koresh Melech Kasher Haya. Koresh was, I don't know if I just said it backwards before. What we're saying is that Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah for Jewish kings, and Tishrei is the Rosh Hashanah for non-Jewish kings. I don't know if I just said that backwards a minute ago. So right? Did I say it's backwards before? I don't know. I did say it backwards. Sorry. So okay. So the verses that Nehemiah was quoting where Nisan passed and it wasn't, and there was no change. Here the verses quote that Tishrei passes and that there is no change. So you would have to say, so the Gemara says, how is that possible also? So it says these second set of verses where we're talking about the verses on Chagai, where we're talking about Tishrei passing, and there is no change in the year. That is because the king we're talking about at that point is actually a Jewish king. Now there were two different Koreshes. So it says there were two different, Daryavishes, and here we're talking about the second one. It says Amar Avo Koresh Melech Kasher Haya. The Gemara is going to answer that in a second. Amar Avo Koresh Melech Kasher Haya. Lefikach Manu Lo Malchei Yisrael. Koresh, second Daryavish, it was Koresh is actually the word. If you look at the letters, is the same letters as kosher. It's just it's split. It's reversed. So that was why he was called Koresh, because he was a kosher king. It was a slang, I guess, they gave to him. So Koresh was a kosher king, and that's why his reign is starting in Nisan. Therefore, in the two verses quoted in Chagai, you see that the year does not change. So he's counted as a Jewish king. Koresh happens to be the son of Esther. So that's the second Daryavish. After Esther has a child with Achashverosh, and Achashverosh, after he dies, Koresh, his son, takes over. That's Daryavish, the second Daryavish. His son takes over, and he's going to be referred to as Artaxashta. So he's Koresh, he's Daryavish, he's Artaxashta. We'll see that momentarily in the Gemara. That he is the one that allows the completion of the building of the second base of Mikdash. So the verses we quoted it on the previous page, or on the top of this page as well, with Nehemiah, that began the Ola Bavel to Yerushalayim. With Ezra, Nehemiah, it was they built a very, very, they started the process and they built a very, very small shell of the base of Mikdash. And they got it going a bit. Ezra wound up starting the Ashkenaz Gedolah. They started rebuilding. What do you call it? Just dwelling, like a civilized dwelling in Yerushalayim. A lot of the biggest Chachamim wound up over there then, and then afterwards, only later you have the whole episode with Daryavish, the second one, who allows the completion of it. It got stopped in the middle of the first. So the second Daryavish was a Melech Kasher, and so we count him from Tishrei. Maski for Rav Yosef. Now the Gemara doesn't actually know. A lot of it. It's going to only say a lot of the stuff momentarily. It's going to say a lot of the stuff that I just said. But right now it's assuming it doesn't realize that Koresh and Daryavish and Achashasta is the same person. So Maski for Rav Yosef Chada. He says I have a couple of questions. Two questions. Chada. The imkain kachu kroya adade. If what you're saying is true, the verses are going to contradict each other. Dichsev, it says in the verse, V'sheitzi beisa duna ad yom plus leyarach adar dihi shna shis l'malchus Daryavish malka. They finished the base of Mikdash at the third in the month of Adar, which is the 12th month. They finished it in the third of the month of Adar, which is the 6th month, which is the 6th year of the reign of Daryavish the king. Vitanya and ba'osazman l'shana haba Allah Ezra b'Bavel v'Galusa imo, and the verse says that in that time, at that time in the following year, Ezra came from Bavel. Ezra with other Ola Bavel, Ezra with some other people from Bavel went up to Yerushalayim. Viksev vayavo Yerushalayim b'chodesh hachamishi hishnas hashvius lamelach, and they got there in the 5th month, which is the 7th year of the king. So that means that they started the base of Mikdash. They finished the building that they did at that time in the 6th month of in the 6th year of the reign of Daryavish, and in the 12th month of the 6th year of the reign of Daryavish, and they got to Yerushalayim in the 5th year of the 7th reign a seventh year of the reign of Daryavish. So therefore, you see, we'll see. Vim isa shnas hashminis miboile. And if that is true, it should be. Wait, the other one was 6. Oh, it says in the following year. As it should be 8 because it says in the hold on a second. I'm actually have the somehow this winds up to be 8. Why wouldn't it be 7? Let me see. If you're going to count from Nisan, it should be 8. Why would that be 8? If you are, okay, so now this math ones I don't have. Would that be? Yeah, somehow this would wind up to be a count of 8, and I'm not grabbing the question here. I'd have to look it up. I have to get back to it. Vim isa shnas hashminis should be boile. Started at 6. It would have passed. Does it say over there? Do you have how that? Anybody have an answer that tells you what the why? Tell me why would this be the Gemara on the question that it's 8? Why would that be a count of 8? It says because I guess it was a full.
It says the first verse reports that the temple was completed in the honor of Daryavish's 6th year. Consequently, the honor of the following year, just before Ezra departed, must belong to Daryavish's 7th year. Now, if Daryavish's reign is reckoned from Nisan, then the following Nisan, when Ezra sent out, marks the beginning of Daryavish's 8th year. But the first dates of Ezra arrived in Jerusalem in the 7th year.
Okay, so yes, okay, that's so the it says in the Shana Haba. I guess I don't know why how they know to read it that way, but for some as opposed to it would be the 7th. But yeah, going through the verses, it's saying that more than a full year passed. So either way, so it winds up to be that since it was other to other, and then by the time that they got up there, it puts them in what month did it put them in? In the 5th month, so it puts them in Elul. Right? That's what it says. If they finally wind up there, make it there in the 5th month, which is Elul, so that would be this of the 7th year. So that should be 8 since Nisan will have passed in between. Okay, yeah. But so that's number 1. His first question is you see here by Daryavish that what do you call it? That Nisan passes and we don't count it as the new year. V'od midami hasam koresh hachadayavish. You how are you bringing all these verses against each other? Some of these verses are talking about koresh and some of them are talking about dayavish. So the Gemara says, Tana hu koresh hu dayavish hu artachashta. They're all the same person. Koresh, why is he called Koresh? Shemelach kosher haya. He's called Koresh because he was a kosher king. Artachashta al shem malchuso. He was called Artachashta because that was his position as a king. Umashmo Daryavish. His name was Daryavish. Fine. So Mikol Makom Kasha. Even still, I have a question that the verses seem to switch where his kingship is going from. Sometimes you pointed out that his kingship was going from Nisan. Other times you point out his kingship is going from Tishrei. So Gemara says, Amar Rav Yitzchak lo Kasha. That's also not a question. Kan Kodem Shehechmitz. Some of the verses are referring to before he went sour, so to speak. He wasn't before when he was a kosher king. Kan lacha shechmetz, and some of the verses are referring to after he soured. He wasn't as noble. Maskefel Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana asked the following question: Miachmetz. Dayavish went sour. Vaksiv. Now we have a verse that says, Uma chashchan. Dayavish is he's relating to send as a gift to Yerushalayim, send different things. He says, so whatever the priests want, what they want, and send them. He's going to list a whole bunch of different animals. Send them. Sorry, hold on a second. Just trying to get my own thing over there. Why is this not opening? Yeah. So it says what they need. Send them uvnei Torin. Send them dichrin imrin la'ola, and send them oxes and rams and different lambs for burnt offerings. Elokesh Shemaya to their God. Chintin, wheat, melach, salt, chomer, mshach. I don't know, chomer like chomer medina, like wine, mshach, and oil. Send this all to them. Kimamar kahanya di Yerushalayim, just like the Kohanim of Yerushalayim say. Leheve misyahev lahom yom b'yom di lo shalom, and make sure that you provided for them day after day what they need. So it sounds like the verse is bringing. It sounds like Daryavish is willing to provide them in Yerushalayim with whatever they needed. So now they're going to pull at that pasuk and say, you can see there that the way the verse says it, he didn't have the greatest intention, even though that's what he said. Amarlo Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Tununcha li lahon. He says you could see it from the verse itself. You could see it from what you're pointing out, that in the verse you could see that Dayavish's intentions were not as pure as it seems. That the verse says that they should be able to send all the stuff to the Kohanim, that they should be able to offer what they need to their God in heaven. And that the Kohanim should daven for the reign of the king and for his son. So you see that Daryavish was requesting some of it on his own behalf. So he wasn't so righteous. The Gemara asks, wait a second, that's a problem. A person does something and they do mitzvahs. They do a mitzvah in order that they should also have success in life, have health and success. That's a problem. Vatanya, what are you talking about? The Brisa says, if a person says, I'm giving this $1 to tzedakah, because I want it to be a zechus, I want it to be a merit that my son should live. Or I want the reward in the next world. I'm giving $1 because I want reward in the next world. I'm not doing it for the sake of the mitzvah with all the kavanas of the Zohar. I'm doing it so my son should have life, health, or so that I want olam haba. Or is it tzaddik gomer? The Brisa says that guy's a tzaddik. He's done his mitzvah. The mitzvah is a mitzvah. What's the problem? So what's the problem that Daryavish had intention when he sent all this stuff? He still sent all this stuff. What's the problem that he had intention in order to have his reign continued, his life prolonged, and his son's life? So he says, "Lo kasha." No, that's not a question. It depends if the person that is being discussed is Jewish or the person is an idol worshiper. If the person is an idol worshiper, the Gemara is assuming that if he gives money for the sake of the mentality of an idol worshiper, if they do the action for the sake of their own benefit, and it does not work out, they're going to just be buoyed. They're gonna say, you see that God doesn't do anything. So a Yisrael is going to just say, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for either I didn't do enough, or I still didn't merit it, or whatever it is, or there's some other reason why Hashem didn't listen. But an idol worshiper's mentality is if I do it and it doesn't work, so then the God's not good. So for Daryavish to send it, if he didn't have a good outcome, we can't expect, if that's not considered a tzaddik of an idol worshiper, that they do things in order to have the positive. They're trying to please the gods in order to, even if it's Hashem, in order to have the positive outcome that they want. For a Jew, that we would expect it. We are okay with that mentality. Okay, I mean it's still a tzaddik mentality. For an idol worshiper, it's not. Now that's one proof that Daryavish went sour. If you want, I'll give you another proof. From where could you see that Daryavish went sour? Nidbachin di Evan Galal tlasa v'nidbach di achada. There were three that he made when he made the flooring of Yerushalayim. He made rows of stone, and he made 3 rows of stone and 3 rows of wood. V'nifkasa min abayas malka tisaya v'nifkasa min base malka tisaya. So and let the expenses. And I'll write the check. There, ever says, and I'll write the check. So the Gemara is going to ask, why did he make some of the flooring of the Beis Hamikdash to be wood? Lama leidav hachi. Why did he do this? Why did he make some stone and some wood? Savar, because he thought to himself, Imardu bi Yehudai, if the Jews revolt against me, Iklai benura, I'll have an entry point to the Beis Hamikdash. I'll be able to burn it down also, because if some of it's wood, it will be able to catch fire. So Dayavish also was. He was also the Chazal are holding him suspect of also be willing to burn it down if he wants to. Gemara says, really? Shlomo himself built some of the flooring wood. Vaksiv, the verse says, Shlosha turi gazis, v'tur kreises arazim. He had 3 rows of stone, and then he had rows of cedar. So Shlomo himself used wood in the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara says, Shlomo oven milamala. Shlomo made him above the iu oven milamata, and he placed it below. Meaning, I guess, I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure where Shlomo's was. I don't know if the note tells you where Shlomo's was. I don't really have. It says Shlomo made it above, and do you have a note there? That's Rashi's here.
Solomon's temple, the wooden part of the walls did not pose any danger to the integrity of the structure.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure how. I'm not exactly sure how my guess is that there was a stone foundation and the wood was put on top of it, as opposed to by Daryavish, he had the wood on the bottom, so he can theoretically get down there and destroy it from the bottom if he needs to. Another thing, Shlomo Shake Bibinya, Shlomo sunk it into the building, and he didn't sink it into the building. Does that also explain the structure? I don't have clarity on exactly how this is being built, but okay.
Yeah, he says that someone had the wood on top of the stone, so if it burnt, it still wouldn't destroy the structure.
Shlomo had it on top. Yeah. But then it says Shlomo sunk it into the. What does it mean? Shlomo it got sunk into the building, and he did not sink it into the building. Does that also have a note? That's next. That I say. Shlomo Sajib Besida, Iulo Sajib Besida. That one that's the easiest one for me to understand. That Shlomo coated the wood with limestone, and they did, and Dayavish didn't. He put straight wood there. But I don't know what the second one is. I can't. Doesn't have a note on that. He sunk it in, and I'm not sure exactly. Okay. In any case, he built a shadi structure. It's just saying he built a shadi structure, so Dayavish built it shadi, so he can have yeah, it's in the right. So he can have it an entry point if he needs to. Fine. Yeah. Rav Yosef. Vitem Rav Yitzchak. Minolan de Achmetz. Rav Yosef says another. He says that this is an interesting one, and we'll stop playing that. This one. Rav Yosef says, I'll preview another place that Dayavish went bad. Vitem Minolan de Achmetz. How do I know that he went bad? Mehacha, from here. Vayomer li hamelach, and this we pointed out on the previous page. We're going back to this verse by Nehemiah. Vashegel Yosheves Eitzlo. The Shegal was sitting next to him. My Shegal, what's a Shegal? It's some sort of companion. Rabba Bar Lima. Rabba Bar Lima says the name of Rab. Kalbasa. It was a female dog. I'll let you use your own imagination. The Gemara says he had a female dog next to him. So therefore you see that he wasn't such he considered that his companion. Elamiyata, if true, we usually stop at 5 too. Okay, all right. So we'll push pause over here. We're still today in Daf Yomi. We're an Amud ahead. So today in Daf Yomi is supposed to be 3. So we're still 1 full Amud ahead, not a blot. I lost an Amud in a few lines. Rabbi Diskin gave me that leeway. Don't worry about it. Don't lose confidence in me. I'm sure I'll lose much more space. I'm sure I will go much further behind. But I am still getting used to waking up in the morning. I saw Neil, I pop out of bed, jump into his car. He drove here, no problem. And I'm like, no, he drove, yes. So used to.
Because the point, like we're 5 pages behind, just have Rabbi Diskin sub for one class. You can do all 5 pages.
Does he rip
in
through it?
5 minutes.
Does he rip through? All right, so we'll get, huh?
You
You know, if I go a lot of dots. He was the only one.
You can do a whole second.
He was the only one that we used to say that Rabbi Govlat used to be able to. We used to, the custom of saying the 10 sons of Haman at the end of the Megillah in one breath. He was able to do the whole Megillah. He was able to do the whole Megillah.